class in America has kind of become its own entity, and why and in what ways it has become distinct from the rest of America, and why it's kind of become a really disenfranchised class, which has been very, very interesting, especially in light of the Trump administration. And she kind of directly addresses that. So I appreciate reading it. I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm hoping to read Hillbilly Elegy, which is kind of about like abject poverty in Appalachia, I think. I have had that on my shelf for a while, so I think they'll go really well hand in hand. But I don't know, I'm still kind of on a low from from Stranger Things. I finished watching it last night. And oh, that was kind of a gut punch. I'm not gonna lie. My kind of favorite character of the season, good guy Bob, he's gone. And he was sacrificed on the altar of Joyce and Hopper. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's still kind of getting to me, you know what I mean? I'm admittedly a diehard Dustin fan. Like, I think a lot of people are, because Dustin is just like, he's the geek who loves that he's a geek. And he's confident in that. But I don't know. I'm so sad for Bob. Like, he didn't deserve to die. And in my head, right? In my head, he and Hopper were kind of going to co-parent these kids. Like, they were going to go on all sorts of hijinks where, like, Bob was the geeky dad, and then, like, Hopper was the, like, what the hell is wrong with you dad? And I loved that idea. I had gotten so excited for it when I realized Bob wasn't going to be secretly creepy, that watching Bob die was just made me rage. And then I, of course, was like, why did everyone care about Barb but not about Bob? Because I try not to understand fandom too much, even though I understand that Barb was much more of a kind of fill-in-the-blanks character, and that's why people liked her. I don't know. I mean, Dustin's still my favorite. How could Dustin not be your favorite, you know? He's just so smiley face awesome, and I love that about him. My computer's doing some funky stuff here. I don't know. And I'm glad that 11 is back, but I'm really excited for next season to see, like, the punks come to Indiana. I really liked Callie, and I liked the idea that, like, there's this almost Magneto-esque aspect about her. Granted, I don't want it to become X-Men by any means, but, like, I like that, of course, there's kind of this counterpart to Elle who's really trying to be good. I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see what they do with that thread. And admittedly, like, the concept of a punk rock anarcho-communist kind of gang coming into Indiana and, like, trying to beat these bad guys kind of just is hilarious to me. Especially after having watched Hopper try to be like, it's okay that you came back and you're a punk kind of now, to 11. That was pretty hilarious. I'm really hoping that we go. I don't think we're going to be able to save Mama, but, you know, I think maybe we'll try next season. That seems likely. I don't know. That dance scene, guys, with the hair. How did I come out of this season liking Steve so much? I didn't like him most of last season, and it was kind of one of those moments at the end where I was like, well, I have to like you now because you're not totally terrible. And now I come out of this and I'm like, well, Steve is the only one who's helpful. And I almost had a panic when I was watching the last episode, and it kind of looked like maybe he was going to save Dustin in the tunnel. And maybe he was going to sacrifice himself for the kids. And I was like, oh God, don't do Bob. And now you're going to kill nice Steve. But of course, that's That's not the best. Hi, Maya. Hi, Joe. And yes, Steve was the best parent, did that whole thing, which is ironic because they were actual adults. Um, I don't know. And I feel bad because like I don't know. Poor Steve. He's gonna bounce back though. He'll bounce back. Uh, I don't know. Between that and like I just wanted Nancy to do more. I'm not really sure how I feel about her and Jonathan. That was like it's just doesn't really work for me, but that's okay. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Also, that moment where Steve is explaining his hair to Dustin made the entire season. It was worth a lot of the weird stuff in that season for that moment exclusively. Um, and then to watch Dustin try to do it. I hope he left that dance feeling so damn cool. I really do. Um, I'm waiting to see when the release date is for season 3 because you can tell a lot of that plotting they did knowing that they have a 3rd season. I'm also waiting for the new Star Trek. I'm really excited for the new Star Trek. It's their fall finale. I haven't followed along with an actual television show like weekly release kind of deal for years. I think the last time I did that, I was in high school and I was going through a phase where I really liked Bones. Not a big fan of Bones now as an adult, but back then really liked it. I think it was just the closest I was going to get to a Scully and Mulder. But I'm excited to see what that goes. Like, we're going to war. Yeah. I'm behind on my videos for that. I have them filmed, but I'm just like not uploaded them. That's like the story of my life here on YouTube. I have it filmed, but I haven't done anything with the editing. And then I went today to go to the bookstore, of course, because today is Veterans Day. Thank you to any veterans who stumble across this. But so I had Friday off and I used that to do a lot of my chores around the house. So I like got to actually sleep in and like do basically nothing productive all day. And I have to go on an airplane ride. It's like 2 hours, hour and a half from where I am here to go kind of to this conference on Tuesday or on Wednesday night. And so I picked up some novellas to read on the way. I picked up the Litchford, the second and third Litchford novellas. I haven't read anything about them. And I like The Witches of Litchford. And yeah, backtracking. Yes, Maya, Star Trek has been really exciting for this last episode. I'm excited to see where Saru is going with this because I think he's going to just have like a meltdown. Between him and all of that stuff, it's going to go crazy, I think. Also, I'm really excited to finally pick back up with the Klingon plotline because I feel like we haven't talked about the Klingons at all for a couple of episodes. So that'll be very cool. I spent most of last week reading kind of shorter stuff and comics. So I finished My Favorite Thing is Monsters, which practically made me cry. If you haven't read that, it's huge. It's like this thick, probably a couple hundred pages, but it is a tearjerker. It's about a little girl who thinks that she is kind of a monster in waiting, right? She wants the monsters to come get her and turn her into a monster. And it turns out that it's because of these really sad reasons in like the 1960s that have to do with like access to medical care and living with a single mom and her brother who and her are half Mexican and like all of this stuff that just makes you want to like sob, which of course is like right up my alley. That with just a touch of magical realism. It's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And so it took up like a full 2 days because it was that thick of a comic, and I was only reading it over lunch. And other than The Rise and Fall of Dodo, I haven't really had a ton on my plate. I'm trying to get that out of the way. I have a non-booktube friend who I'm reading that one with. And the good thing is that he has a small child, which means that his reading time is limited. So I can take my time with that particular book, especially since I'm not really digging it. And that makes life kind of easier. But other than that, I have again been trying to read this white working class book. I finished this book called Push Out. It's about young Black girls in the prison and school to prison pipeline in the US, which is really just depressing. This is like the month of me reading depressing nonfiction, and I'm not really sure why. Hey, Rhea, how are you? Although I did pick up actually, since Rhea is here, it reminds me, I picked up a bunch of the scary manga, like the horror manga that you mentioned. So maybe I'll pick some of that up this next week. I really only have like Monday, Tuesday for my regular reading schedule, and then I'm going to just bring the novellas on the plane. But I think that will be engaging. I guess, I don't know. I don't know what I should be reading, really. I feel like I'm not going to be able to get a good shot at reading for like a couple weeks. Because in the US at least, so I go out of town on Wednesday, and then next week is going to be the week leading up to Thanksgiving, and I'm at a conference that entire week. And then Thanksgiving, which is the US holiday, is going to be Thursday. So it won't be until not this Thursday, but next Thursday that I'm really free to do anything. I have Down Below Station on audio, so maybe I'll get a couple minutes to listen to that, but I don't think I'll make any like significant headway. And so this is always like the awkward time of the year for me because I just don't do anything for like 3 weeks. My week before this has been all prep for this conference. I help run an academic conference. We host like 1,500 college kids. And like the prep to do that and to do it well takes up a ton of time. I started prep for the conference in February. And my cycle for that kind of goes in phases, but it's a long couple of weeks. And when I'm there, I don't really get to do anything. Like I get up at 6 and I go to bed at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. really. So if I'm lucky, I'm getting like 4 or 5 hours. If not, it's fewer depending on how rowdy people get in the hotel. Just kind of is what it is. You'd hope that I'd be able to read, but one of the best parts about this conference is that everyone there is a reader. Like all of the staff who are there with me are all also readers. So it's fantastic. It's like one of the few times of the year I get to sit down and be like, yo, dude, did you read that new Sanderson novel? What did you think? And people actually have like intelligent things to say back to me, with the exception being being here on YouTube. So it's like nice to be able to actually sit down there. Hi, Mr. Breaky B. Welcome to the stream. I don't know. I wish that there were more conferences like that. I've been thinking about going to the Fantasy Con, but I haven't really looked into that too much. It's really hard. A lot of the time, the times that I would be able to go to a conference on those like 3-day weekends, they're actually taken up on prep for this conference. But I'm really excited because I've like blocked off the entire week for San Jose at Worldcon this upcoming year, which is going to be just fantastic. I'm super excited. Joe is coming. Joe is going to come to Worldcon, which is going to be awesome. He's crossing the pond for us. I think Claire's coming. Admittedly, I'm the one who helped convince her to do that finally. I don't know. It's going to be so much fun, especially I think Chris, Brock, and Rachel from Colonnati will all be there. And I went to the World Con in Kansas City with them, and it was a fantastic time. Actually, Rachel and I have hung out a couple of times now. I didn't get to have her come up or go meet her this this July, which is what I think we've met up the last couple of years. But I love everything about her. She, Chris, Brock, and I had a fantastic time at Kansas City, so I'm like starting to get super pumped about it. I actually I am on kind of the organizational list for the YA and like children's programming section, which is super exciting. So like the people who are helping to pick panels for YA topics is me, which is kind of trippy. So I've been like reading a ton of YA because I want to be up to date on what's going on with that. So if you've seen me like reading and been like, why is Brie reading all sorts of YA? She's never done that before. It's because I want to really think critically about some of these topics. I'm really excited for it. Oh yeah, lots of coverage of next year's Worldcon. And awesome. If you live in the Bay Area, that must be really easy to get there. I'm jealous. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I know a lot of other people have been working behind the scenes for quite a while. And I know last year Elizabeth did the signings line and organized that. She won't be doing it, I'm sure, for San Jose because I don't think she's going to be able to be there. And that's kind of one where you need to be able to be there. But that'll be exciting. And then, everyone will be in Dublin. But that's a ways off. I keep trying to think about ways I could swing going to New Zealand because that seems really awesome. But I don't think I can swing that's a lot of cash to get there. It's like $2,000 from the continental United States to get to New Zealand. That is round trip, but it's a lot of money. Like I'd have to be very, very frugal for a couple of years to be able to swing that one. I also am I'm needing to read Alias Grace. That's the Margaret Atwood. I'm super excited about this like showdown of the Margaret Atwood television series that like Amazon and Netflix are about to have. I'm really excited for it. I watched the trailer for Alias Grace and I don't want to watch it until I have read the book. In fairness, I haven't watched The Handmaid's Tale yet, so I guess I could probably go ahead and do that. Maybe that'll be my next television watch. Have any of you read it or watched it? Sorry, watched The Handmaid's Tale or Alias Grace for that matter? Because it looks really good. And I feel like if you're going to go head to head on Atwood, you have to really invest the cash to like make it good and the time and the energy. So I'm really excited to see that. I've been really loving how much science fiction and fantasy is getting adapted recently. Like I'm ungodly excited for HBO to do Nnedi Okorafor's Who Fears Death. That's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited. I know there's been talk about The Name of the Wind, and I've heard, I think this has been confirmed, that they're getting Lin-Manuel Miranda to do a lot of the direction on it, like the executive art aspect, and that sounds amazing. Him and Patrick Rothfuss, I think, like aside from knowing that they get along well, I think that'll be great. Yeah, and a Broken Earth adaptation. It's like somebody in Hollywood finally got their stuff together to like get worthwhile science fiction and fantasy on air. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm a little nervous. I know there's been rumors about ancillary justice adaptations, and I just, part of me is like, that won't work. Don't do it. Mostly because I think part of that is that story in particular is successful because you're in Breck's head. And so you are also like as confused about gender norms as Breck is. Whereas if you had the visual aspect, I just don't think that that would be a thing. It's kind of like the idea of doing Left Hand of Darkness. It's just very hard, I think, visually to get across some of the concepts. As an aside, I read an article the other day that was like Gwen talking about the Earthsea adaptation that was done early 2000s, I think, and saying that she really didn't like it, which doesn't necessarily surprise me. But that was really interesting because I've been doing some research on book cover whitewashing, and that kind of came up because the main character of Earthsea, it's not explicit, I think, for the first book or two. Maybe that's wrong, but is in fact a young man of color, and they cast him as a white dude. So that's been interesting. It's been interesting to read all about that, actually, and to see some of the really ridiculous things that they have done. Like, I think at one point I was looking through, and they did a couple of Octavia Butler books where the main character is on the cover as white, which is just not the context that like any of Octavia Butler's stuff has ever been in. So that was really, really interesting. I have not seen Hardcore Henry, but I will put that on my list of stuff to watch. But yeah, especially, I don't know, I really want to do some more like topical content stuff like that. Like kind of talking about whitewashing, or like about the stuff like when Nnedi Okorafor wasn't even mentioned in a lot of the articles about Who Fears Death being adapted until like the last 3 sentences and stuff like that, because I think it's really interesting. It's just also very hard to quantify. And I think a lot of times when I think through issues like those, I want to look at numbers, and I want to kind of be able to quantify the impact. As some background for those of you who may not know, I studied social science methodology, so actually like statistics and how they apply to social sciences, for my master's. And so for me, getting that kind of mixed method, like, yes, it's important to hear these firsthand accounts. It's also important to be able to use those as a way to illustrate quantitative numbers, is really interesting to me. But it's really hard to kind of look at those issues without the numbers. Yeah. I'm a little surprised, actually, that they haven't done an Earthsea reboot, because that seems like one that's really easy to tap into kind of the dragon love that is going on right now. Although I was really pleasantly surprised when they did the Worst Witch reboot. I grew up with Worst Witch with the Tim Curry version and wanted so bad to be Mildred Hubble. I can remember being in like 4th or 5th grade or something and going to the living room and sitting down in the mornings and watching that and just being like, Worst Witch, I want a tabby cat. Like, I never wanted a black cat. I wanted a tabby cat because Mildred Hubble had a tabby cat. And I watched the reboot of that and was very pleasantly surprised. Mostly, I think it was just a very charming reboot. But I'm surprised they're not doing one for Earthsea. And I would think that you could do some really awesome stuff with Dune. The David Lynch adaptation of Dune never really did it for me. Mostly, I think it's just partly just because David Lynch, you know. But be that as it may, it's kind of like in a world where we are looking for a competitive high fantasy to something like Game of Thrones, Dune seems like the easy choice. And then on top of that, like a lot of the stuff with Dune that I think failed just because we didn't have the quality of adaptation and the quality of like special effects to really make it believable. And I think that would definitely be doable now. Oh yeah, I heard about that Lord of the Rings reboot from Amazon. I just don't know why you do that. If only because like it's only been what, like 15 years since they did the movies. I'm gonna look that up because and they were good movies. And yeah, Farseer. I mean, the Lord of the Rings reboot also doesn't make sense to me because there's just so much good other content that hasn't been, done over and over and over. And let's face it, yeah, the first Lord of the Rings movie was in 01. But especially since like there's so much content that hasn't been done and doesn't have like the obvious kind of people love this adaptation or this version to it. I don't understand. And yeah, Farseer would be a good Game of Thrones analog. I'm trying to think of what else I've really liked. I have a hard time because I don't actually wind up reading a ton of epic fantasy. Epic fantasy and like especially like swords and sorcery fantasy doesn't tend to do it for me. I kind of like something that gets a little bit more trippy and cerebral. But I could see doing a couple of Crestomancy adaptations too. That seems like a really easy way to get kind of the kid crowd in on some really high level stuff. Oh yeah, Swords Point. Yeah, Broken Earth is going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. I grew up on science fiction more than fantasy, although admittedly my vein of fantasy love goes to the real low end of the spectrum. I read, or not read, I think I've seen The 10th Kingdom, which is like a mini series, like a 12-hour mini series. I think I've seen it like 15 times. It is not good enough to watch 15 times, but I have. So yeah, I mean, my childhood was a lot of Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, X-Files. So things kind of more in the procedural or science fiction vein. And yes, all the Redwall books could definitely do with a fantastic, like high quality reboot. My not nephew, who is 9, I gave him Redwall. So excited that I gave him Redwall. His dad didn't really like Redwall as a kid, but I was like, no, we're gonna do this anyway. And he liked that. So I was proud, not anti in that moment. I also gave him Ender's Game because I'm awesome. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see where we go with this kind of high quality adaptation. The kind of stuff that's been coming out of Netflix and Amazon and HBO recently has been just really, really good. So I'm excited for that. I'm hopefully going to go see the Murder on the Orient Express this weekend. I'm a little hesitant to go see it because I really don't like Johnny Depp, both as an actor and as a person. And I kind of want to be like, ugh. But I don't think he probably is getting a cut of box office sales. I think they probably just gave him a flat fee. So maybe that'll be okay. Also, still really bummed about him being Grindelwald. Like, I'm still real sore about that. Because of all the people we could have gotten for Grindelwald, we went with Johnny Depp. Are you kidding me? How's the adaptation, Joe? Joe just said that he saw Murder on the Orient Express yesterday. So yeah, we'll see how I feel about the new Harry Potter ones. And for the record, Joe liked Murder on the Orient Express. Yeah, I just can't get over Johnny Depp. I know it's a thing. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I want to be like, but you beat up your wife slash girlfriend, and also you're kind of a bad actor at this point. You're just doing Jack Sparrow over and over again. The combination of things is not great for me. Um, yeah, I agree. Colin Farrell was so much better as Grindelwald. And I really also just kind of in general am a bit of a Colin Farrell fangirl. Um, I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised that they chose to do a Murder on the Orient Express adaptation, but I guess it's been quite a while since they've done anything with Christie. I would really love to see a really good biopic of her, though. Uh, I didn't know that about Winona Ryder. Yuck. God, what scum. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what like my fantasy one would be. I think a really good fantasy adaptation that I'd love to see is the I'd love to see them do a Golden Compass one. I know that they've done the movie in the past, but I think it's one that would do a lot better as a series to begin with. So that would be I think ideal. And hmm, hmm. I'd love to see them do some more Le Guin stuff. Has anybody watched the new or seen any clips of the new Doctor Who? All I've seen so far is kind of snippets. I haven't paid attention to Doctor Who since probably the second or third season with Amy Pond. I just was not into. I am not a big Stephen Moffat fan, um, and so I kind of let it slide. And now I'm like, oh, I probably should watch it again because I want to give number boosts and support to it if there's going to be a woman doctor, but I don't know if it's going to be any good. I did see her closet, the snippet of her closet, and I liked that quite a bit. It does seem like the actress that they have playing her is going to be pretty spot on. Admittedly, my favorite doctor is probably still Christopher Eccleston, at least of the new run. I'm not as familiar with the older stuff, so I has the opinions. Okay, yeah, Matt Smith didn't do it for me, and it is important to know that the showrunners have switched because that makes a big difference. I never used to know this much, but then I about like behind the scenes on how production of shows are made, and then I started dating someone who's really into it, and now I feel like I know too much. I've seen a bit how the sausage is made. Yeah, I also have a lot of qualms with how Moffat writes women. I feel like when he does it, it's like woman as a mystery or woman as a toy with a main male character to play with. And I'm not down for that. Like, I'm not here for that. But that's my personal kind of belief or preference. Take it as you will. Oh, Hanurai and Yemi's just having a new one or having a new book come out. I didn't know that. Summerland. Sorry, Twitter is just telling me this is a new thing. And yes, Manic Pixie Dream Girls, Rhea, not my deal. Okay, Summerland. Loss is a thing of the past. Murder is obsolete. Death is just the beginning. In 1938, death is no longer feared. The because they discovered an afterlife. And the British Empire takes over Summerland, a metropolis for the recent deceased. Looks like we get some Soviet good times. Oh, that looks fun. I like Hanu stuff. Did it just get bumped until next year? Because SF Signal just tweeted out about it. Oh yeah, because this has it coming out in June 2018. I really like Hanu's writing. Rhea, have you not read The Quantum Thief? Let's see. I'm going through my Twitter feed, by the way, to just see what's interesting in the world. And all I'm coming up with is like 7 pictures in a row of Sam decorating for Christmas, which I love. Her enthusiasm for Christmas is pretty awesome. Rhea, you have to read The Quantum Thief. I love The Quantum Thief. Let's see. For some reason, Twitter really wants me to read Infomocracy right now. I think it's because Malka Older went on a Twitter retweet rampage. I had a really hard time the first time I tried to read Infomocracy. Oh yeah, Mia's right. You should do the thing. Yeah, Twitter just wants me to read Infomocracy and to watch Murder on the Orient Express right now. That's all it cares about. Thanks for things I didn't need reminders for. Twitter. Well, anyway. That's good to know, Joe. I think I've had a hard time with some books, and I think it's a matter of when the mood gets me. If I'm in the right mood for a book, I am really eager to read it. And if I'm not, especially for certain kind of more trippy or cerebral stuff, I have to put it down and read something. Like my entire October was basically just reading fluffy YA thrillers, which I didn't know was a genre, like YA horror. And so I'm kind of getting back out of that kind of a mindset. I still have a bunch of witchy kind of oriented stories to read. I'm also unsure how much I want to read a story about a world that maybe looks too close to ours. But I guess that's what science fiction almost always is. I remember having a professor in college he was my political philosophy professor, and he told me that if I really wanted to go into political philosophy, what I should do is read as much fiction as I could. Which I thought was interesting at the time. I was like, why would that be the case? I clearly need to be reading more Aristotle. I know nothing about Aristotle. And now that I've had a little bit of distance from my academic years, I'm like, yeah, no, he was right. Fiction is where it's at. I read the Hate U Give last month, which was a little heart-wrenching. That's the one about a girl who sees her friend in a shot by the police. Like a clear kind of analog to a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff that's going on here in the US. And that was upsetting. in a poignant way, but very heart-wrenching. I heard that they're giving that an adaptation too with oh, what's her name? I know it. Mm. Um, but anyway, I have a friend who's a professional storyteller, no lie. And I was like, you have to read this; it'll make you cry. So I gave my copy to her husband to bring to her, and he was like, "Why would either of you want to read books that would make you cry?" It's like, because the feels, bro, the feels. Anyway, we're coming up on about 45 minutes. So I think I will probably go ahead and close this up. But thank you for being my friends. and for participating and talking with me about stuff. It's really quiet here today, and tonight my roommates are both out of town and the cats are in the other room asleep. So that has been fun here. I'll be oh, sorry, my plug's being undone. So I'll be, of course, around. I'm gonna spend the rest of the night, I think, filming like reviews and stuff. I will see about putting up some pictures of the kitties. I would take you to see them right now, but all of my clean laundry is on my bed and I haven't folded it. So, you know. And yes, it was nice to talk to you guys. I will see you very soon. Bye.